So, today, in the midst of a lot of hate coming from Ben Shapiro towards Andrew Tate, I thought I would share a message from Tate about how to engage in improvement, about how to better yourself. This is an email he sent out. For those of you who don't know, he sends out emails like almost every day to people on his email list. I'm not a part of HU, but I am a part of his email list. In response to a lot of the incoherent hate coming from the Daily Wire to Andrew, I thought that I would share this so that you can understand exactly how sophisticated and important, critically important, the philosophy of self-betterment is, and also how it actually overcomes the mental depravity of the left, which I think the right can learn from. So yesterday I recorded a video analyzing how Ben Shapiro just basically was either uninformed or was willingly lying to his audience about what Tate stands for and what he preaches. The video before that was about how Brett Cooper got Fresh and Fit completely wrong, said a bunch of things that just were incorrect, and also she played videos. Ben did this too. She played videos of Fresh and Fit as if she was going to disagree with them, and then she just agreed with what they had to say. So I'm going to show you this recent message that was sent out from Tate. Then I'm going to add my own perspective, having performed at the very highest levels in multiple domains, notably among them violin. I was going to be a professional violinist for a long time, but I decided not to go to conservatory. I decided not to pursue classical music because I'd rather do other things with my life. But I have a lot of experience collaborating with others. In fact, a tremendous amount of experience collaborating with others at a high level. So I'll speak to what I notice being a critical feature of somebody who is willing to overcome, improve. A lot of people don't have this because they just haven't been raised for, they haven't practiced, they haven't been raised in an environment that demands high performance. A lot of people, quite frankly, and I say this even knowing some of my friends, fall into this category, they have the loser mentality. They don't know how to look at the world and be optimistic. All of these terms that I describe are a part of a greater ethos that a lot of men either have or they don't have. Tate thinks that men, even older men, can learn to adopt the mentality I'm talking about. I think that that's true. It's difficult and can take a lot of training, but if you get around the correct people who demand it from you, then it can be practiced enough. What's funny, too, about this email is that it directly refutes what Ben Shapiro said yesterday about how Tate doesn't promote hard work. It's incredibly funny how literally the message Tate talks about every single day refutes the first claim Ben Shapiro made about him. Guys, if I keep talking about Ben Shapiro, it's because he was one of the two guys that originally rescued me from the woke mind virus, the leftist ideology at my extremely elite leftist high school. Fun fact, that high school was the same place that Elon Musk sent his kid that turned his kid transgender. Also, a lot of movie stars sent their children there because, they're all on the left. Hollywood is all on the left. Master the art of never lose. The first line is very interesting because somebody with a low IQ who is nihilistic and wants to give up will even give up subliminally when they read something like this and think, oh, he means to never lose. That's not what he's saying. He said, master the art of never lose. He's turned never lose into a verb here. As you're about to see, he talks about how to overcome losing, how to overcome being insufficient. And this is important because all men to some degree are insufficient and are chained by their aspects of insufficiency if they don't know how to overcome them. You can think of it as a prison. If you don't know how to overcome a problem, you are essentially enslaved and imprisoned by that problem, by that insufficiency, by that lack of understanding or that lack of a sophisticated mindset. The second line says, every single loss on earth can be turned into a win. This is correct, and the reason this is true is because every single loss is an opportunity to improve yourself so that your view of the world is more sophisticated than it was before. Another high-performance environment that I was in was competitive chess. I played chess for like 15 years, went to tournaments, etc. The way you improve at chess is to not be crippled by losses. I see this also in some sports that I'm involved with, where when somebody loses, they're just mentally distraught. But if they had played chess at a high level, they would know that a loss is an opportunity to improve yourself immediately. This is why Tate promotes people learning and playing chess, by the way. Every defeat flipped into a victory. You need to become an expert at adaptation. This is describing what I'm talking about here to some extent. You need to become the Borg. When life shoots you with a weapon, you need to make sure it only hurts once and can never happen again. Yeah, that's the way computer engines learn. With the self-learning engine AlphaZero and AlphaStar being the Google engine that learned StarCraft, the most high-performance, fast-paced action and real-time strategy game in the world. And then the same engine, I think it was DeepMind or Deep Zero, something like that did chess. The reason why those engines were so good and only took hours to learn is because they never repeated the same mistake twice. So what the engine did is it played itself millions of times, and 99.9% of its moves were wrong. But it analyzed every single time it made a mistake and simply updated the database saying, never make this type of mistake again. And over playing millions and millions of games over 4 hours, it was able to get to a point where it basically makes no mistakes in chess and was able to crush all other engines that have existed for decades. Humans, I can tell you, are not capable of that level of perfect adaptation, but if you try, you can be like 5, 10%, 15, 20% effective, and if you work hard, then that practice will compound, and immediately it'll compound so dramatically that it will set you apart very dramatically from any person who does not try. I mean, this is clear in chess, this is clear in violin, this is clear in everything that I've done. This is clear in the career of any high-performance sports athlete that you talk to. This is clear to any person who has succeeded at a high level at anything. You must use your brain. When I see this, I think about not turning to leftist resentment. Because using your brain can sound trivial, but it's not. Because your brain can do a lot of things besides focus on what it needs to do in an optimistic mind state that knows what the goal is. It can tell yourself the game's unfair. It can tell yourself, why did this happen to me? It can tell yourself self-doubt. Like, I mean, I've never experienced this. I hear other people talking about this. Is it possible? Is it possible? Am I good enough? Et cetera, et cetera. Your brain can tell yourself all sorts of things, but you must use your brain in alignment strictly with first principles. This is a technique that Elon Musk talks about. It's how I basically naturally came to think before I even met Elon Musk. But basically what it is you focus on the first principles of reality. What is objectively true? Most people believe things that are true that aren't actually true in the limit. That's a physics term. It means that when completely logically and rationally vetted, can the principle stand up by itself? If not, then you need a more fundamental first principle to build from. And then you can vet any idea that you have in accordance with first principles. This is how thinking is actually possible, and yet less than 1% of the population is actually capable of it, I find. But any person can learn to think in terms of first principles. So that's what you should think of when you read, you must use your brain. A superpower that 99.9% of men on this planet have never learned to do. Tate understands what I'm describing here. Got sucker punch, he's talking about it in the domain of physical combat. Perfect. That's because that's what he's excellent at, one of the things he's excellent at. I talked about chess, I talked about violin, I talked about some other things. Lost a client, another domain, right, professional. You're running your business, you lose a client. How do you overcome? How do you improve? How do you better yourself? See, this is the reason why the winners win and the losers stay resentful. This is also the reason why rich people have very little patience for peasants, for lack of a better term, because they just assume that any person that is perpetually a loser is a loser because their brain is making wrong choices. And to an extent, they're correct. You don't want to be in that category, and a lot of people are in that category. Another domain, lost your girl. If your girlfriend left you, you can think to yourself, why did this happen? For what reason? How can I better myself in accordance with many different objective parameters so that I'm in a better position in the future? Again, asking yourself why and how in the first principle philosophy. It's more of a technique than a philosophy, but it can also be a philosophy. There is no luck. A lot of people do this. They say, oh, it's bad luck. They make excuses. Nothing is more pathetic to me than somebody who makes excuses. And I will say at the very high levels of performance, let's take classical music for an example, any person that makes an excuse for their mistakes is immediately ultra low value and will not go anywhere. There's nothing more cringe and pathetic, I mean truly, truly pathetic, than somebody who makes excuses. Most men never learn. That is the reason why most men are losers and accomplish nothing. But Andrew Tate talks to all men. So again, Ben Shapiro is incorrect. You need to learn after one mistake. Ideally, that is the first principle limit that you should strive for, to learn after one mistake. Even if you are trying your absolute best, you will not learn after one mistake. You will learn after like 3, 4, 5, hopefully not 5 mistakes, but I'm talking about a mistake of the exact same variety. It can be difficult to sometimes know exactly why you made a mistake. You could think the reason why you lost the, let's say, logic system of chess, for instance, could be X, Y, and Z, but actually it's Q and W. And you don't realize that until you lose again. But you should strive to learn after one mistake. By the way, Tate is actually very similarly ranked in chess as I am. Like me, he stopped competing in his adolescence and achieved a rating of like 1800. His father was a chess grandmaster, mine was a rocket scientist. So I would say he had the advantage in chess. Master the art of never losing. Make each bullet that pierces your skin only strengthen your powers. Right. You must change your mindset to not be afraid of the inevitable difficulties of reality. What I would add to this is that understanding reality is not optional in a very macro sense, because any person that does not understand an aspect of reality is punished for it. If you fail to grasp something, you will pay the price, even if you don't know that you pay the price for failing to understand it. This is why a lot of women and a lot of men have destroyed lives, and why, more accurately, why more men are complete losers who are stuck in a cycle of being losers, and why a lot of women experience constant anxiety. It's because they're actually getting a lot of things wrong about reality. They are telling themselves false stories, false things. As a matter of fact, it is very likely that 95% of what you tell yourself, if you have not been trained to think in first principles, is not true. That can be scary to think about, and you can think to yourself, oh, I'm better off retreating back into my shell of telling myself what I've always told myself. But in fact, that is the unsafe thing to do, because it's not in accordance with reality. It's not actually correct. You should try to burn away all the dead wood that is around you so that you can see what's actually going on. There are teenagers that make $500,000 a month on the internet, and I'm working a job that pays me $32 an hour. Could be just one example. That's a very surface level example. But if you really think about that statement and the fact that it's true, you can immediately extrapolate all that I'm saying. You can either say, oh, that's unfair. Oh, I'm going to make excuses as to why they're making that much money. Or you can say, how can I learn from that? What am I doing wrong? What have I failed to apprehend about the nature of reality that 19-year-olds are making $500,000 a month online, and I'm working for $32 an hour? This could just be one example. Any domain, whether it be chess, music, sports, academia, etc., making excuses will cripple you. There are some examples of people that are very, very inadequate when it comes to facing objective reality. And I'm going to show you guys examples of this through a new lens, the lens that I just provided you, so that if you don't see it in yourself first, perhaps you can see it in somebody else. Here's a perfect example. A couple of girls that 95 to 99% of what they say is literally incorrect. They're walking physical embodiments of failure as well, considering that they are out of shape and narcissistic, delusional. The list of things wrong with them is near infinite. Psychologically, practically, the way their psyches are structured. So try to pay attention to what's wrong with them as they speak, and think to yourself, why is what they're saying incorrect? Not a description of their incorrectness. Why? Why is it wrong? What failure have they committed in their life to get to this point? Not speculation. Exactly. Why?
Society need men.
Yes and no.
No.
So the first answer from the fat girl is inadequate because it's low resolution. Saying yes and no in this situation means nothing. But perhaps she's just low IQ, so we'll give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what happens next.
So why yes and why no for you? And then I'll ask you why you said no.
Well, because in today's society, sometimes you don't need the male to have a baby anymore.
Yeah.
So right there, I immediately have selected for serious errors, many of them. But I want you to think about what's going on here before I say what they are.
That's why I would say yes
Yeah.
and no.
It's not like a moral thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm like we can exist without men only
Yeah.
because new research has been discovered of making egg into sperm, so we can reproduce without men. So it's not like a moral thing. It's more of like if men just died right now, could we survive?
So this girl's trying to be more logical. She's trying to answer the question if the question is posed literally, practically. But even so, she makes errors. So what is the biggest error that they're making? There's a lot of big ones. But the biggest error is that they are failing to ask themselves the correct questions about what does a world without men mean for women. To answer that question, you have to have knowledge in psychology, so you have to know the way women operate in the world, with and without men. You have to know the way women are psychologically predisposed to be. You have to know what men bring to the world in terms of very accurate first principles. And then once you understand even, let's say, 20% of what I understand on those topics, you will see how ridiculous and absurd these statements are. And yet, these girls tell themselves this narrative about reality. You see what I'm saying? I'm referencing what I said earlier. The narratives that they're telling about the world is literally inadequate. People do this all the time. They tell themselves stories that are false. putting aside that they're, physically destroyed, the idea that women don't need men because women can have children without men ignores even surface level data like women create juvenile delinquents, criminals, underperformers, underachievers, and chronically mentally ill children when there is not a man in the house. So not knowing that, or even knowing that and saying what they said anyway, is a sign of deep inadequacy, uninterestedness in reality and the truth and objective frameworks, and at absolute minimum, a devastating lack of understanding when it comes to basic psychology. And we haven't even begun to talk about the developmental psychology for children with and without a male influence in the household. So their answer is insufficient on that level. You see how when Tate says he is very professional when he talks about his responses to things, he often says, I will answer this as a professional. This is what he's talking about. He's saying he is going to vet the idea in terms of first principles. Elon Musk does this too. You can train yourself to think this way so that you base your answer not from the end conclusion you want to reach, but from what is literally true. And when you practice this technique of first principles enough, you can do it very, 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 very fast. This is the reason why when Elon Musk talks, he almost never says anything wrong. Actually, he basically, it's crazy, but he's so good at talking in terms of first principles, he basically never says anything wrong. He only is mildly inaccurate with some statements and then corrects his statements. And the reason he can do that is because he thinks in terms of first principles. He would never say anything remotely like this because he would think, okay, what does psychology have to do with this? What does it mean to say women can have children without men? Is that true? No, it's not true, because X, Y, and Z, 1, 2, 3, X, Y, and Z, 4, 5, 6. I can immediately think of like 16 different reasons why just that claim is incorrect. But these women were just like, oh, well, I heard in a magazine that I read once, it says as I was getting my nails done that women can have children without men, so I just think that, we don't need them anymore. You see the delta in terms of how people can function. So, take utter accountability for your mind. You are committing repeated mental failures. 99.9% of you guys are constantly committing mental failures, and it is your fault. It is your fault. You must take accountability for every single thought that you have, or you will be punished in reality for failing to understand the world, just like these women are looking absolutely foolish and have failed to adapt. Guys, not only have they looked foolish here, but they're going to be wrecked whenever they have kids, because think about it, they've already told themselves the story. When they have children, when they think of getting married, etc., they will think to themselves, what have I told myself about this topic? Oh, I remember answering on camera once that I don't need men to have children. And so either they're going to go along with that, which will result in terrible outcome, or they will say, I'm going to ignore that, which will create internal cognitive dissonance, because then they're lying to themselves because they told themselves one thing and they're doing another. And then that will create anxiety. And then you see people just create problems because of their inadequacy constantly. So you must not be like this. You can't increase your IQ, but you can get on a treadmill. No, I'm just kidding. Well, you can't get on a treadmill. This is brutal right here. That's, completely disgusting and brutal. But for real though, you can control what your thoughts are like. Ben Shapiro is willing to talk to Elon Musk, and he understands Elon Musk's ability to say things that are true. If he disagrees with some things that Andrew Tate says and thinks that they are literally untrue, he should be able to debate with him. In-person debate. I actually think that in person could go well for Ben Shapiro. Because if Andrew Tate just starts talking over him and screaming, then Andrew Tate's not going to look very good. He's going to look mentally unserious in comparison to Ben Shapiro. And then people that are, striving to be mentally serious will say, okay, I should probably listen to Ben Shapiro instead. So I don't think he has to be afraid of a in-person debate. Same goes for Jordan Peterson. I think that if there's an in-person debate, ideas will be exchanged very professionally. There was a video going around of Tate saying that Jordan Peterson would lose to him in a debate because, Tate would just talk more. I think Tate is completely incorrect about, because if he does do that strategy, then he will look unserious. You have to when you're talking with somebody the caliber of Jordan Peterson, for instance, you have to engage with ideas. Otherwise, the delta between you and them is just going to immediately appear so large that you're losing on multiple fronts. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to think in first principles. Strive to think in first principles. What you can derive that is literally true about reality. Not conclusions, not opinions. What is literally correct. Like a water molecule is made up of 2 hydrogens and an oxygen. Like personality distribution research. Like the laws of physics. Like studied patterns from history, etc. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like.